Hello everyone, and today we will be creating an Estus rocket in Kerbal Space Program. Kerbal Space Program is a space simulation game. We are playing in the sandbox mode, which means we don't have to worry about money at all. This is modified, which is why there are many parts in here which are not in the game. This is going to be a simple drone rocket, which means we will be using a remote guidance system. Now we will take a I'm thinking we'll be using a solid rocket thruster. We will just type in solid, and we'll be using... Shrimp is a bit too small. Bit too long. It's a bit large, to say the least. I think someone just put a can in here. This is modified. And we'll use the... Yes, the thumper, perfect. Now we will take this thing, and you'll notice we have a delta V in there, and we will look... Now, right now, this thing will work perfectly fine. Now, this looks nothing like an Estus rocket, and, well... I'm gonna show you why. This thing flies perfectly fine. However, you might notice a bit wobble. It's a bit wobbly. It works perfectly fine, but and here we go. We got a little bit of a problem. It's a bit squirrely. It's a bit tippy, mind you. I don't have much control over this thing, as I only have this reaction. We only have reaction wheels on here, which are basically just metal discs that spin really fast. And well, we're not going to space anytime soon in this thing. You'll notice that this thing's flying all over the place. Now then, yeah, the engine runs out of solid rocket fuel, and, well, this is gonna crash down somewhere. We'll go into 4 times speed, because I think rockets exploding is a cool thing to watch if it doesn't cost money. We're at delta V, which means this thing is gonna run. We're out of solid fuel. We are only... Oh, that's 2 times speed, and there we go. Explode. Now let's go to the VAB, the Vehicle Assembly Building. You know, that tall building that we were in just a few moments ago. We'll go into Now, let's make this thing a bit more aerodynamic. We'll put in some winglets. I'm thinking 3 of them. For no particular reason. Honestly, other than my rocket in our class has 3 fins, and I want this one to have 3 fins as well. Now, this also is fine. However, it too will most likely squirrel about a bunch. It won't spin, it won't rotate. However, if we wanted to, we could use the rotate tool, do this, and then it'd spin like crazy, as I will show you. Yeah, the fins are a very wonderful thing. They're relatively light. They don't cause too much delta V unless... However, they're useless in space, seeing as there isn't air. You'll notice that these things are curved, and we'll be using... I forget what effect it's called, but yes, you will see that this thing spins up, and spins very fast. Because you may notice these winglets are kind of coming off of here. Yeah, that's just the Kraken. This thing is spinning so fast that centrifugal forces are causing the game's engine to not exactly know what to do. This thing will not spin out of control. It won't do very well. But it won't spin out of control, because these things are cause the thing to spin, which because of, I believe, centrifugal forces, or at the very least, it causes any minor changes to not, instead of compacting upon themselves, instead it'll just cause the thing to spin. It's like rifling in a gun, except this is the rifling end. Well, now we have a problem. This thing isn't gonna land. And you might notice, this thing is not going 2 kilometers per second. It barely got up to 1 kilometer per second. And, yes, it's a bit nauseating to look at. This thing could probably chop a Kerbal head off, which is the reason we're using the remote guidance unit. It's also running out of electric charge. Let's fix all 3 of these problems at once in the VAB. We will be going in here. Going into the electrical panel. Again, lots and lots of modded things. And I personally am feeling a bit thermonuclear today, so let's get a... Oh god, what's it called? I know it's in here. A generator. An RTG. Radioisotope thermoelectric generator. Wonderful things, really. Perfect for deep space missions. Especially the ones where there aren't any Kerbals to worry about. Technically, this doesn't do anything, but I like to think that it causes them to become superheroes on the way back. Well, technically, you can just throw these on anything. However, they're also quite heavy because they are very, very heavy. Because, again, you're using a or radioactive isotope. They're not going... Those things are not light, to say the least. Now then, let's get a parachute. I will not be using these things, because although they look nice, kind of ruins the vibe, honestly. So, we'll be using a radial mount parachute. I don't know where the drogues are, but they are in here somewhere. We will change the symmetry mode to only one time, which makes it far easier to do this stuff. And I don't think we need this thing to be spinning all the time. Although it adds stability, it also is not very nice to look at. We'll put it like that although it'll still be helpful. Now, we will be going into the fuel tank section, because for some reason this is in here, and we will be looking for the adapter. Somewhere in here, you will see, the NCS adapter. A wonderful, wonderful little piece of tech. We'll be taking all the liquid fuel out of this thing, because a thumper... any solid rocket fuel booster, for that matter, cannot use liquid fuel. And vice versa. You can't strap one of these things and pipe the solid fuel into, say, one of these. Doesn't work. This completely different things. This thing has to be put on something too. Mind you, most of this space is the thruster. The thruster is just down here. It's basically just a nose cone, honestly. Then most of this is just fuel tank. Because of the wonderful, our friendly rocket equation. Now, still a bit blunt up here, so let's get a small nose cone. Small nose cone. All this is vanilla, mind you. And we forgot something. Yeah, the Estus rocket has the parachute pop off. And I want this to be looking like an Estus rocket, so this thing will have a decoupler, which basically, using explosive bolts, can allow you to decouple things. Basically, this thing will go off. And let's fly with these wonderful new additions. And we will wait for it to load. Press toggle on SAS to just help a bit, because this thing doesn't hurt. And you may notice a little bit of a problem. And you might notice another problem. You, by now, have most likely noticed 3 problems. Despite the fact that we have fins, this thing is spinning about, the parachute's out, the nose cone has fallen off, and it, to be honest, has the best life out of all of us. And kaboom. This thing will just spin around here uselessly, smoking up the air like a smoking machine in a rave, until eventually it runs out of solid fuel, as you can see there. Now, we already know how this is gonna end. Explosion, yada yada yada. We'll load back into here, and this is where the wonderful term check yo staging comes. We'll take the solid rocket motor and direct from stage 0, which, mind you, this one will go, then this, then this. So, first, this engine will be activated. Then, next time we press spacebar, which is a thing to activate the next stage, the decoupler will activate. And then next time we press spacebar, the parachute will attempt to activate, or at least be readied. Now, let's try this again. And we will again wait for it to load, and we will be ready to see. Thrust up, which doesn't do anything because this is a solid rocket motor. You have no control over it. You just sort of activate it and it sort of does its thing. And it flies! And it doesn't spin out of control because we checked our staging. Again, staging, very, very important. Now you might notice all these symbols here. Prograde, it just makes it want to point whichever direction the rocket is going. Stability assist, which is what I have it normally on, will just try to counteract any change in rotation. Retrograde will make it point away from wherever it's going, so this would be pointing in the opposite direction. It'd be pointing... Oh, the thruster would most likely be pointing downwards, and that can cause some problems if you get to 0 speed. And I don't exactly know what normal NT, normal radial in, and radial out do, but they're important for some things. I should most likely have looked that up beforehand, but it usually does affect me. Prograde and retrograde and stability assist are incredibly important, and some of these are blotted out. This would be which will point you in whichever direction you will do for. And I accidentally pressed spacebar. Luckily, we're out of the atmosphere right now, as you can clearly tell by the fact that the space music is playing, and this bar, we're out of atmosphere. This doesn't really matter anymore. Then you'll notice the nose cones sail off into infinity. Well, not infinity, because they'll follow roughly the same trajectory as us. And thank God for time acceleration. We will just... I'm thinking 50 times speed. You'll notice our speed is going down because we're going up this parabola. We're falling. Gravity is still affecting us, even though we're considerably far away from the Kerbal, which is the equivalent of Earth in this game. And we'll slowly reach the parabola. We'll go to 50 times speed. And you'll notice that various forces cause this to change. Because, of course, Kerbal is still rotating. Kerbal rotates a little bit, and then now we are falling no longer onto the ocean, but instead onto a mountain range. Now we passed the apoapsis, which is the highest point, which is 357 kilometers into the sky, or 357,000 meters. And again, we'll go into time acceleration. And by now, the nose cone is now 10 kilometers away from us because the decouplers also push things away because they use explosive bolts. You heard me right, explosive bolts to cause stuff like decoupling to happen. We'll go into 4 times speed because I don't worry about this thing exploding in the atmosphere too much. However, let's go down a bit. And you'll notice the radioactive isotope things are about to explode. See? There. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit of a problem. I'm desperately attempting to get this thing to move, however, it most likely will not, and now we're going half a kilometer per second, which isn't very fast in space, but is very fast when it comes to ramming into things. Now, luckily, our parachute is able to be activated now, seeing as it's no longer red, and we will press spacebar right now, and wait, it is not quite activated because the minimum altitude for it to deploy is 1 kilometer above the surface. And now we're going a nice, steady 10 meters per second. Now, we will be waiting a little bit for time acceleration because 10 meters per second, although faster than you could ever run and faster than Usain Bolt, is still not very fast when you're 100 meters above the surface, and I'm an impatient man. Now, and that was explosion, because time acceleration. So, the thruster is gone, because time acceleration causes wonky things like that to happen. Usually, if you're in time acceleration, things explode. If I was in 1 time speed, the solid rocket booster most likely would not have exploded. Now, we could recover the vessel, but that would leave all this debris, so we will revert the flight back to vehicle assembly. Surprisingly, nothing exploded. On re-entry, this thing just exploded when we were going down. Anyways, that was me creating the Estus rocket in Kerbal Space Program, again, with many mods. However, this is all stock stuff. You could build this in the base game if you wanted to. Have a very nice day.